A way to show them the way than to help the first responders of today.
Not only are we teaching them, I mean, we've already had instances of our children who are in these programs already saving lives here in Palm Beach County. So it's just a testament to the quality of our educational system here, and specifically our medical academies, our partnerships with FAU. But at this time, it's about doing everything we can as a system to support the entire community. And this small donation from our school medical academies allows us to make sure that our heroes on the front line are protected as they take care of us.
I've been with school food service for nearly 30 years between Long Island, New York, and here, and it's always gratifying just to see that smile on that child's face every day. They're very happy, and I believe that they're grateful that we're working as hard as we are to make sure that they're fed. We feel that we should put our kids first. That's what we do. They're our kids. No matter what school we're at, all these children, they are like our own, and we want to make sure that they're getting what they're supposed to be getting for their meals.
We miss our kids, so I mean, dedication, you can say that, but it's part of the job. I mean, if without this, we would be empty. We wouldn't have any purpose. So, yeah, we're definitely dedicated, but it's, you know, it comes with the job. We love our kids, so we would do anything for them. We love our job. We're here for them, but you know, it's all in the one motto, kids first, pretty much sums it all.
This started out as a hobby. There's lots of software that's really easy to use, user-friendly. Anybody can get into it. My name is Camilo Pena, and I'm a 10th grader at John I. Leonard High School. My father and I had been 3D printing masks as mechanical barriers for health professionals to prevent them from getting sick from bacteria in the air and from other patients. We were looking through the internet, and there's a group called Copper 3D, which was the maker of the first design of our mask. This is dual filter, propylene discs and circular discs that would prevent against bacteria in the air from getting to the person wearing it. So we took an open source file which everyone can download if you have a 3D printer. And this one was more efficient because there's 3 sizes, small, medium, large, and it's the same idea. There's the filters. After a while, the engineering college, Rowan University, came up with a more efficient mask, easy to clean, so it's antibacterial. And if there's any problem with fitting of this mask, we submerge it in hot water and mold it to that individual person's face, and it's more efficient in preventing bacteria. Now we're in quarantine, got nothing to do, so we wanted to help out as a collective effort to flatten the curve of the virus.
So we're here at Palm Beach Gardens High School. We're giving out all of our goodies that we have for our seniors, diplomas, yard signs. Instead of just handing them out, we're making it into a big celebration. Everything you're getting today, you earned. Unfortunately, I can't give you any more diplomas bigger than this, and I can't give you your next one, but this is the most important one I can give you.
You know, I was really trying not to cry because I didn't think it would be that big of a deal. But to my mom, I know it means a whole lot, and it means a lot to me that I've been able to accomplish this and been able to do so much.
You fought through all types of stuff to get to this point today, and you have this for life. Has your name on it. No one can ever take it away from you. It's your ticket to the next level. All right? Use it often. Use it wisely. Can't wait to see what you do. Proud of you, sir. It's a great moment for everybody here.
He did it. He really did it. He did it. This is so wonderful. This is just as good. It's still a special moment, and I'm so happy. Oh my God, I'm so happy.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today.
Hi, I'm Christopher Sosa, and I'm the proud recipient of the Student Volunteer of the Year Award. I'm a 10th grader at Suncoast, and I'm in the Math, Science, and Engineering program over there. During my time at Suncoast, I've put in 750 hours of volunteering. mean, working with students, I like seeing the way that they appreciate the help that I give them, the way that their eyes light up when they see the big 10th grader coming out to help them with their homework.
community. I felt like it was absolutely important for me to make comments today prior to the start of the board meeting in reference to the killing of Mr. George Floyd. And, you know, as over the last 2 weeks, as I have processed this reality, it has become clear to me that, you know, in my role as the superintendent of the 10th largest school district in the country, there are certain responsibilities that I bear to be a catalyst for change. But I also believe that in this moment, I, for the first time in my career, need to be fully honest around my experiences as a Black man in America, especially with the reality of the duality that I possess, meaning walking in multiple worlds. For me, I am a highly accomplished, very successful young Black man. My sisters do not enjoy the same privileges that I have. And so I want to just talk about the realities of who I am through my experience as a father. And so I can tell you right now that I am hurt. I am devastated. I am scared. I am a lot of things that I really have never really articulated. But this community was first introduced to me, or I purposely introduced myself to this community through the lens of my child, my son, Donald Edward Flournoy III, who many of you saw hold the Bible when I was sworn in after this board took a chance on me. But what you don't know about me are all the decisions that I live with daily as it relates to raising this young man who's getting bigger and bigger every single day. And I think the journey to help people understand why this is so traumatic. So being who I have not always been this well-polished, suit-wearing person. I was a child like everyone else. And as a child, you make mistakes and you grow up. Things happen. Unfortunately, you know, based on generational issues, I was taught to endure certain things and just push forward. But now I'm at a place where something more must happen. The other day, Bob Hatcher, one of our amazing principals, was on a call with me, and he said, Dr. Flournoy, the other day when you came by my house, you brought your son. He was cooking some food, and he said, when Mr. Floyd's situation occurred, he was talking to his children, and his thought was, how is Dr. Flournoy going to talk to his son about the killing of George Floyd? First of all, I was proud of him for even acknowledging that my conversation will be different. But let me say this, what you don't know is that this is a constant, continuous, for the 11 years since the day he was born, worrying about him. So being a privileged man, I have taken the choice to protect my children as much as I can from the very harsh realities of this world. I bought a home considering simple facts. So let me share this with you, and bear with me. Every day I ask my son to go to the mailbox, either ride his bike or I take him up there. And I sit in the car with him and I say, Donald, when you go to that mailbox, because in our neighborhood, it's in a central location, it's not at our homes. I say, I need you to be respectful. I need you to speak to people. I need you to open doors. So the vast majority of American society would say those are good things that you should teach your children. But what I never shared with him, and I'm sharing for the first time, is not just because I want him to be polite and have pleasing behaviors that make everyone else comfortable. Honestly, it's so that when he walks around my neighborhood by himself, someone will not call the police on him because he doesn't look like he belongs there. People will identify him as someone who belongs in that community so that I can have some sort of peace to know that he can go ride his bike and someone will see this boy who they've seen repeatedly and they won't be afraid. because I did not want my children to grow up in a world like I do, which I'm a big man. I'm an overweight man. And so the fact that every morning when I get up to go outside and walk, I'm conscious of, do I wear a hoodie sweatshirt because it's dark outside? And I might walk up on my neighbors who are walking and they don't recognize me and they call the police. Or people get scared of me because I'm 6'4" and black and I don't have my suit on. And maybe you saw the tattoo on my leg. I don't know. But I live in constant fear of offending other people or triggering something in other people to call the police on me. You know, I'm not going to go into the details around the instances that I've been in the course of my life. You know, my mother reminds me of those things, and that's for another day. But today, I realized something very powerful. So in this protection of my child, again, we're all dealing with distance learning. And so he's been immersed in that world. He's also from a different generation. When he watches television, he watches what he wants to watch. And so does my 4-year-old daughter. So they hadn't been paying attention to George Floyd. So I made him do that earlier this week. And we talked right before this meeting. He was here in my office. And I said, Donald, what do you think? Because we've never had this conversation. And he said, well, the first thing I thought was, what would we do as a family if you are killed? And what am I supposed to do with that? What am I supposed to do with that? He also went on to talk about all the other men in our family. But here's the thing that I find powerful about his statement. He said, I hope people like you in power don't abuse your power. I hope people like you in power make changes for the better. And you know what I said to him? So that I began to explain to him why I'm so hard on him about being respectful. Because you know what, ladies and gentlemen, you know what I want the most? I want my child to survive the encounter. I want him to come home so that if something happens, I can call the attorneys. I can call my friends at the sheriff's office or my own chief. But even that statement alone is chock filled with so much privilege because there's so many other people that don't have the opportunity to call the sheriff or contact an attorney. And so even that's what makes me feel so torn at times because I do want my child to survive the encounter and come home. And so for me, in this position of power, I have this intense obligation, and I think all of us do. And so for every parent out there, for every person who is struggling, every white person who wants to know how I fix this, how I help, I feel like I'm taking a chance today for the first time in my career, sharing with people publicly how I live my life outside of the image that I allow you to see. And so I say, as we move forward, that this particular district has, thanks to many of our board members, Dr. Robertson in particular, has fought the good fight for a long time. But there comes a point where you have to start doing something. And so I'm committed as a superintendent to doing something. And we will work through that. But I just want everyone to know that there are a lot of people like me that are not okay. They're just not. And I think I want to give people who look like me the permission to at least say that for once in their life, to literally have an honest conversation around your fears and your anxieties. Someone like me is always being charged with being strong for everyone. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not strong. I can't be strong 24 hours a day, and neither can you. And so I hope that we don't just take this as another dead black man in America and move on with our lives. I hope, you know, to our students that are out there peacefully protesting, I need you to survive the encounter. I need you to come home. I will never endorse breaking laws and destroying property. But to our children, I understand. We raised them to live in this utopian world where we all get along. But I don't know if the adults, well, I know the adults in this country have not lived up to that promise. And so I challenge all of us to figure this thing out, push, be courageous, and hopefully put our children in a better position to do better than us. And so I just appreciate the opportunity, Mr. Chairman, and the entire board, for you believing in me, supporting me. But I do want you to know that daily, in spite of my position, my power, my privilege, I do operate in this world as a scared human being. Thank you, Mr. Barbieri.
Thank you, Dr. Fenoy, for sharing your personal perspective with us. As a district, as we consider the horrific attacks on George Floyd and demand justice, we must remain committed to addressing the underlying racism which continues in our country and in our community. As a school district, we must double down to ensure that all of our efforts are focused on racial justice, not only in these times of extreme brutality, but every single day. For parents who are struggling about how to speak with your children about racism, I encourage you to look at some of the district's website at palmbeachschools.org. There's actually a link there on that website for parents, both white and black parents, to get some help on how to address these issues with their own children. Mrs. Brill.
Thank you, Mr. Barbieri. And I was going to make some comments during our time to comment, but it's appropriate to say something now. And I really want to thank Dr. Fenoy for his heartfelt comments and bringing us into the reality of what this is like for him and his family and others. But I do want to share with you that I read an article in Education Week on Monday by Larry Furzalo, and he asked, what hard truths do teachers, administrators, and policymakers have to confront to remedy the issues that George Floyd's death highlight? He continues saying that silence in the face of systemic racism and oppression is no different from the police officers who stood idly by while Mr. Floyd pled for his life. We must be anti-racist. We must confront, name, and actively dismantle a system that benefits some but marginalizes others. And yes, this is something that Dr. Robinson has brought to us over the years. And yes, we have started to embrace that, but we have to do so much more. So I personally look forward to our discussions in the weeks ahead on how we will reopen the schools, but even more so, I look forward to future conversations about systemic racism and truly achieving equity in our schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Brill. Mrs. Andrews.
Thank you. And we are a member of the Council of Great City Schools. And as you have seen, the protests in our large urban states where our urban school district reside. We have a letter, I think you all received it, from Michael Casserly, the Executive Director of the Council of Great City Schools. It's expressing my concerns, my pain, and my sadness. And I'd like to share that letter publicly with the public and with my fellow board members. It says, the killing of George Floyd. This time it was George Floyd. Last time it was Ahmaud Arbery. Before that, Breonna Taylor, and so many others. Different names, different cities, but in every case, the underlying racism and ugliness are the same and will remain the same without dramatic changes to our institutions that address the conditions that allowed this killing to happen. This time, it was the police who was caught in the crosshairs of public attention. But that sickening cell phone footage only captured a small piece of a larger picture, a vignette in the ongoing story of injustice and racism that is in our nation's history and our current reality. Mortality statistics under COVID-19 remind us that the same patterns of injustice and inequity extend to healthcare, housing, and to us in education. As we rise to meet the challenges of the current health crisis, to teach children remotely, feed our families, provide internet access, address the mental health of our youth, and fight budget cuts, let us, the leaders of our nation's urban public schools, amplify our efforts to meet this challenge too. This enduring, defining challenge of our time, let us ensure that our schools are safe havens, where all children are respected and nurtured, where all children can achieve and grow, and where all children are guaranteed equity and justice. The nation's urban public schools offer our full-throated condemnation of the killing and the racism behind it. And we vow to redouble our efforts to ensure racial justice is the center of everything we do. And as a school board member representing Palm Beach County, we all must fight for justice, for equity for all. And we have to acknowledge what is real, what's been real for many in our communities all over this country for over 400 years. And we must take action to problem solve, to eradicate this nasty, nasty disease that impacts the United States of America. I'm sad today. I'm happy today to see all of the country coming together and letting the people of the United States of America, our leaders, as well as our friends, know that we will not tolerate this anymore. And I'm so proud of the young people that I see protesting and standing up for the rights, but it goes really deep, and we have a lot of work to do from the educational standpoint. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brandon. If other board members want to comment, you can either do it now or you can wait until we get to the comment section. There's actually a comment section in the second meeting that we have on the agenda today, but I see Mrs. McQuinn, so go ahead, Mrs. McQuinn. Need a microphone, Mrs. McQuinn.
Go to the bottom. Okay, thank you. And just letting you know that I'm saving my comments for the comment time.
Thank you, Mrs. McQuinn. If there are no other comments at this time, we'll get started. Today, the board will participate in 3 virtual special meetings. This first meeting is being held to handle expulsions. Following this meeting, we will convene a special meeting dealing with board policies and to cover board discussion items. And the third meeting today will be a special meeting to move forward with the next steps in hiring of an Inspector General to succeed Mr. Chu, who's leaving us for what we hope will be a long, healthy, and happy retirement. All 3 meetings today will be conducted using Google Meet technology for board members and staff who are participating live. Viewers and listeners can access the meetings today by either watching on Comcast channel 235 or by using the YouTube link on our webpage at palmbeachschools.org. We also offer a listening only option, which the public can access by calling 561-357-5900 or toll free at 1-866-930-7015. The meeting ID is 1-561-880-1124 #. I now call the special meeting of the School Board of Palm Beach County to order at 1:20 p.m. on June 3rd, 2020. Mrs. Bass, will you please call the roll?
District 1, Barbara McQuinn.
Here.
District 2, Chuck Shaw.
Here.
District 3, Karen Brill.
Here.
District 4, Erica Whitfield.
Here.
District 5, Frank Barbieri.
Here.
District 6, Marsha Andrews.
Here.
District 7, Deborah Robinson.
Here.
All right, we have all 7 board members present, so we have quorum. Also joining us today virtually is Dr. Donald Panoy, our superintendent, our general counsel, Julianne Rigo, Inspector General Lung Chu, and our board clerk, Carol Bass. Senior staff members will join us periodically as directed by the superintendent. This meeting is being transcribed by a closed captioner, so remember to speak at a reasonable pace. Now, if you would please direct your attention to the flag on the screen. And as soon as that screen comes up, Dr. Fenoy, if you would lead us in the pledge, and all others, would you please keep your microphone on mute while we say the pledge?
Yes, sir. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There I am. I disappeared off the screen for a minute, so I wasn't sure I was still with you all. I think we're getting very good at handling these virtual meetings. However, just a quick review of our meeting protocol. Try and remember, I know it's tough sometimes. If you are not speaking, please try and turn your microphones back off because we get that audio feedback. And sometimes you don't even realize we're getting the feedback because you're the one that has the microphone on. So please try and remember to check your microphones when you're done speaking, to click them off. Please raise your hand to get my attention if you want to speak, and I certainly will call on you in the order that I see your hands. I'll nod my head to know that, so you know that I saw you put your hand up. If you need to step away from the meeting for a moment, please turn off your camera. This will let us all know that you stepped away, although we know that you can still hear what is happening at the meeting. So at this point, we'll get into the agenda for the special meeting on expulsions. Mr. Superintendent, do you have any items to withdraw?
Mr. Chairman, I have nothing to withdraw at this time. No, I'm so sorry. I do. P8 expulsions of student 1920X043. I apologize.
Thank you, Dr. Fenoy. Any board members want to pull anything from the consent agenda? Seeing none, we need a motion to approve the consent agenda. Motion by Mrs. Whitfield, second by Mrs. McQuinn. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Are there any disclosures or abstentions? Mrs. Bass, do we have any agenda item speakers today?
There are no speakers today.
We need a motion then to approve the consent agenda. Motion by Mrs. Whitfield, seconded by Mrs. Brill. Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Need a motion to, Dr. Robinson, go ahead.
Yes, I just want to make this point, this observation. Each and every one of the students recommended for expulsion, on the forms, it noted that they were not involved in extracurricular activities. So we need to put that in our collective plans for how we move forward in an equitable manner. If we want to save children, we need to make sure that they are engaged in school.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson. There are no other comments. We need a motion to adjourn. I think that motion was already made. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, that meeting is adjourned. Next meeting that we have is, this is the meeting on the policies. So we need the record should reflect that all 7 board members are still present. Mr. Superintendent, did you have any comments to make at this point with respect to these policies or anything else on this agenda?
Mr. Barbieri, not on this agenda, I do not.
All right. Board members, at this point, if you'd like to make any comments about anything, we're at that point of the agenda. Mrs. McQuinn, I saw your hand if you'd like to vote.
Okay, that unmute button, hard to find sometimes. Actually, I was a couple of minutes late because I was finalizing my comments for tonight. So bear with me. I don't have them printed out, but they are pretty much imprinted on my mind anyway. I alerted Dr. Fenoy earlier today that I was going to reference him toward the end of my comments. I have been, as so many of us I know, very sad about the events of the last couple of weeks. And the best way for me to approach that is to share some of my own personal experiences regarding race relations as an educator. And I think that those personal experiences, they inform who we are, and none of us can walk in the other's shoes. So first starting with, as a teacher, a high school teacher, many high school students come to me with a predisposition to not like me because I am white. But I have the privilege of them seeing me every day, and they get to know Mrs. McQuinn, the person. And a great experience from that is that I did teach elementary school for 5 years. And so some years later, when I had become an assistant principal, I was working late and driving home. It was getting dark, and I was in a predominantly Black neighborhood and had a car accident. So this young man came over to me and he said, "Weren't you my elementary school teacher?" And I said, "Yeah, I was." That young man stayed with me hours until my car was towed away and my husband came to pick me up. Now, that's a wonderful opportunity we get as teachers. I'm sure he's had a lot more negative experiences, but that was a really good one. It's kind of sad, though, that he remembered me all those years later. Maybe he didn't have that many positive experiences. Another is, it is both positive and negative. And I say it because we have so many whites who look at the negative parts of the protests with violence and looting, by the way, of all races, because I can watch those videos too, and say, well, see, you know, we just turned to violence. But I have a situation that certainly has not changed how I feel, but I still feel badly toward the person who did it. When I was at the district office, I know this is going to take longer than 3 minutes, so just brace yourselves. When I was at the district office doing leadership development, Dr. Robinson is going to, and Marsha Andrews are both going to remember this very well, but we had Achievement Matters for All, a document that was worked on very intensely by, I think, everyone in the district and community members. And yet here we are still today. But we had a department, today I think it's a multicultural department, and they were helping us with seminars and workshops to understand. It's the first time I had heard of diaspora. I didn't know that. And so I thought I was well informed about the history of our African American, but I wasn't. So anyway, so this department was helping all of us understand the history of our Black students. And so I went to a full day seminar one day, one of those seminars. And when we had our lunch break, and I was one of the few white people there, and when I went to my car, one of the members, a Black female from the department, said, "Barbara, come join us and, you know, get in this van. You know, we're all going to lunch." And so I ran over and got in the van, and the driver of the van, who was very predominant in that department, immediately, not knowing I was there, began making very derogatory comments about whites. And it went on so long that one member, I have to use her name because she's such a kind, incredible human being, Margaret, I won't use her last name, but she's the one who invited me into the van, and finally she said, "Enough, Barbara's in the van." I still look at that person and I don't feel good, but you know what? I don't feel good about her. It's not that I don't feel good about a race. And I think that's kind of where we all have to be. Some of us have had bad experiences with abuse, but you don't look at everyone as an abuser. There's so much more, but let me give this one last one. Also, when I was an assistant principal, I was going to a workshop some distance away, and so I asked a colleague if he wanted to ride with me. And this is really my point of today. Black male, I had known him many years. My stepson thought he was the most incredible educator. He used to come up to school in his motorcycle, and he was in counseling. Anyway, so he said, "Sure, I'll ride with you." And I, thinking that I should fill my gas tank, said, "You really want us to stop and get some gas?" And he kept giving me reasons. No, we don't need gas. Is your tank on empty? So finally, seeing how dense I was being, and frankly, I never thought of this, he said, "Barbara, I'm a Black male and you're a white woman. We cannot go to a gas station." Never forgot that. So it brings me to our superintendent. And I do think about, because of that other experience, when I go into his office and he shuts the door, I'm a hugger. It takes courage for him to be with me behind that door and let me give him a hug. And clearly I'm gonna get emotional, so here's my final message. It has to start with us. And I think at the primary grades, because so much is already in our kids by the time they're in middle and high schools. We need to start at the primary grades, working with our, and I am specific to Black students right now, working with them and their parents and their grandparents to have the positive experiences. So I'm just saying, let's make a concerted effort as we're doing with reading. Let's do the same thing for our Black students. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. McQuinn. Mr. Shaw, Mrs. Whitfield.
Thank you very much. You know, I've got to say something to Barbara. I thought that was one of the most amazing things that I heard in many, many years. And I think it is so real. And the comments that the superintendent made, I think, set a tone for us. I've been through a lot of different things over the years. And every time we get ourselves in a position where there's a crisis situation, when our own being is being threatened, when we look at others and we are challenged to even begin to figure out how to react, I think it really becomes a reminder to everybody in the school district, everybody from the superintendent's office to board members, to our teachers, everybody out there, that our mission is to do what we can to protect the lives of the children who are in there and guide those kids into a future that gives them the opportunity to do the best they can. And what we've had to go through over the last week, it's very evident that we have many, many challenges that we have to face now. And I think that we need to renew our commitment to looking at every single child in this district and making sure that we're doing whatever it is we can to support them and be able to not only support them in their classrooms, but do whatever we can in the community to help promote some kind of realization that we've got to change and we've got to grow. And the comments that I know everybody will have today, I think will be focused on that. And everybody listening, remember, it is for the kids who are in this district who are the future that we have got to build something successful for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Mrs. Whitfield?
Thank you so much. And I want to say a huge thank you to Dr. Fenoy. That was amazing. And I just feel like we're so lucky to have you in the leadership position. I really appreciate you sharing such personal stories with us. I wanted to take a minute to acknowledge the pain in the country right now. My heart goes out to the friends and family members of George Floyd and every person who's been affected by racial injustice. The best thing that I learned from the racial equity training, and thank you, Dr. Robinson, for always encouraging us to go, is that each one of us should fight inequality in the places that we see it and in the scope of our power. And I have been proud of the efforts of this school district, but I understand we have a very, very long way to go. And I want to share how committed I am to commit to continuing this fight. I pray for our communities right now, and I commend those people who are out there making their voices heard. I want to say to all of them, thank you so much for trying to make our country better. I really appreciate it. Every person who's working right now, they deserve our respect and our thanks. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ms. Whitfield. Dr. Robinson, go ahead.
Okay. So my comments tonight will be longer than the rules allow. but I don't think that they will be any longer than the 8 minutes and 46 seconds that man had his knee on the neck of Mr. George Floyd. So just listen. So we have all seen recent events. I don't need to describe them. I do need to say how very proud I am of the protesters, because you know that I believe in civil disobedience. I'm glad to see that white people are finally outraged. I'm disappointed by the few of my children that followed the path of people from outside the community and were destructive. Now, the rest of my comments really started with a text message that I received from the First Lady of my church, and I made a few edits. So, it is true, all lives don't matter until Black lives matter. You want to know why Black people are angry? We can't be handcuffed and put in a police car unless we are beaten or dead. George Floyd. We can't go bird watching in Central Park. Christian Cooper. We can't go jogging. Ahmaud Arbery. We can't relax in the comfort of our own homes. Botham Sean and Atiana Jefferson. We can't ask for help after being in a car crash. Jonathan Farrell and Renisha McBride. We can't have a cell phone. Stephen Clark. We can't leave a party to get to safety. Jordan Edwards. We can't play loud music. Jordan Davis. We can't sell CDs. Alton Sterling. We can't sleep. Ayana Jones. We can't walk from the corner store. Mike Brown. We can't play cops and robbers. Tamir Rice. We can't go to church. The Charleston Nine. We can't walk home with Skittles. Trayvon Martin. We can't hold a hairbrush while leaving our own bachelor party. Sean Bell. We can't party on New Year's Eve. Oscar Grant. We can't get a normal traffic ticket. Sandra Bland. We can't walk lawfully carrying a weapon. Philando Castile. We can't break down on a public road in Palm Beach County with car problems. Corey Jones. We can't shop at Walmart. John Crawford. We can't have a disabled vehicle. Terrence Crutcher. We can't read a book in our own car. Keith Scott. We can't be a 10-year-old walking with our grandfather. Clifford Glover. We can't decorate for a party, Claude Reese. We can't ask a cop a question, Randy Evans. We can't cash our check in peace, Yvonne Smallwood. We can't take out our wallet, Amadou Diallo. We can't run, Walter Scott. We can't breathe, Eric Garner. We can't live, Freddie Gray. We're tired. We're tired of the hashtags. We're tired of trying to convince you that our Black lives matter too. We are tired of dying. We are tired of being undereducated. And we are tired of our reality being denied. We can't breathe. We are increasing the depth and breadth of the Palm Beach County School District Police Force while investigating complaints about their behavior. And what training do they have on fair and impartial policing? I can't breathe. We look at the data and explain away it as poverty. Sure, poverty is a factor, but when we teach poor white children to read better than we teach middle-class Black children to read, what is that? I can't breathe. We have talked about AP potential for years, but somehow our efforts to place children in rigorous courses leads to disproportionality, more white children in advanced courses, and the gap widens. I can't breathe. We continue, after a quarter century, to defy the state law that says we have to include the history, culture, and wholeness of the African diaspora in every class, while we succumb to pressure and terminate a Black man for saying stupid things, yet while doing the right thing by teaching about the Holocaust. I can't breathe. We have numerous dual language Spanish programs, but zero dual language Haitian Creole programs. I can't breathe. We have read the studies that show that all children, but especially Black children, do better when they have at least one Black teacher. Yet somehow we can't manage to recruit, retain, and promote them at the same rate. I just got the resignation letter from my son's middle school math teacher, who happens to be a Black female, who resigned because she felt hostility at her school. I can't breathe. We have a handful of schools whose staffs are conscientiously working to be social justice educators, but we treat them like rogue agents for having the nerve to dream of doing things better. I can't breathe. We look at the other way while children in alternative ed that are overwhelmingly Black and male are schooled in substandard facilities and denied access to career training that is right next door. And wait, have we done what we need to do to prevent the children from boarding that train to alternative ed? No, because it costs too much, the system says. I can't breathe. We have universal gifted screening that is nowhere near universal and still does not identify the giftedness in Black children. And do we look at the ways to do everything we can to counter the educational debt caused by the multi-generational lack of access? No, we don't. I can't breathe. It is time that we stand up and decide to dismantle the racist practices and systems within the Palm Beach County School District. Because remember, it's our foundation. We're going to go into difficult budgetary times. If we do what we normally do, Black and brown children and adults will get the short end once again. We must begin with the end in mind, which are equitable outcomes. We must change how we do business. We must get our knees off the necks of Black children in Palm Beach County. So as the chair of the Coalition for Black Student Achievement, I want each of you to know that the coalition is ready to work with you to change this institution that continues to have racially predictable outcomes. Just like police forces around the nation, there are good people inside the system that want to end the practices that uplift, validate, and affirm white adults and children at the expense of Black adults and children. But this system is still built on its racist foundation. We must establish a new foundation. It's called equity. And remember, white silence is violence, because I can't breathe.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson. Dr. Fenoy? This is Bass. Is Dr. Fenoy still logged on? He said he'd like to say something.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you to all the board members. So when we think about back to school, it should be some slides that need to come on the screen, and I'll wait for those slides. So I would like to share an update related to the district reopening plans for the 2020-2021 school year. To help put this work into context, please recall that schools closed on March 13th due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Our district moved quickly to act on existing and modified crisis response plans pertaining to a continuation of education. These efforts included creating a comprehensive distance learning website, distributing more than 65,000 computers to students, and we have served more than 2.5 million free meals at multiple school sites across the county. From mid-March to May 31st, we operated in response mode. Our collective efforts culminated in a successful closeout of the 2019-2020 school year last Friday. Now, on this particular slide, our efforts are focused on developing reopening options based on best practices that we will determine as a district. We will also solicit input from parents and various community groups to gather information to help us or assist us in district's decisions. The next slide, please. The pivot from responding to reimagining education will take place beginning last week, and it's marked by a creation of a reopening task force. In addition to a health advisory committee comprised of medical experts to ensure our top priority remains health, safety, and well-being of our students and staff. We are working strategically to accomplish key milestones, including the launch of our first Reopening Schools feedback survey, which will go out later this week, followed by a board workshop next week on June 10th that will highlight the initial work of our internal reopening task force. More details will be coming. But please remember that although this can feel like an uncertain time for all of us, I want to be clear that we do know school will be in session in some form once the academic school year begins. Now, whether it be face-to-face learning following social distancing guidelines, continued distance learning, or a hybrid of the two, the school district remains committed to educating all of our children while providing families with the best choice for education in Palm Beach County. I want to thank our families, staff members, community stakeholders, and the school board for your support moving forward. And I look forward to sharing much more with you on June 10th. I also encourage parents and students to make learning a part of your summer routine. Please visit palmbeachschools.org/distance learning. This website contains a wide variety of summer resources and activities. It even has virtual field trips. Please also make reading a part of your summer fun. Most of us are confined to our homes. The adventures found in a good book know no travel boundaries. And so, board, again, to sum it up, I just wanted to give you a high-level preview. We will have a much more in-depth preview of our efforts moving forward, beginning for the board on June 10th. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fenoy. At this time, we'll move to the consent agenda. There are no agenda item speakers for this meeting. There are several items there on the consent agenda. Does any board member want to pull any of those policies off the consent agenda?
Can you go to the top of the agenda, please? So you have minutes to vote on and the regular agenda before you get to the consent agenda. Your mic is.
I see that. I was too far down on the screen. I'm sorry. So we have 3 sets of minutes on this agenda. To Mr. Shaw's making the motion to accept those minutes. We have a second. Motion. The second was by Mrs. McQuinn. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? No opposed. Motion carries 7-0. We have no items to add for good cause. The superintendent has pulled nothing. Mr. Superintendent, if you change your mind, is there anything you want to withdraw from this agenda?
Sir, I have nothing to withdraw at this time.
The only item that's been pulled from consent is POLA1. Are there any board members who wish to pull anything else? All right, we need a motion to approve the consent agenda. Motion made by Mrs. Whitfield, seconded by Ms. Brill. Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. So the first item on the agenda will be POLA1. Mr. Superintendent.
Yes, sir. The computer's, okay. I recommend the board approve adoption of proposed revised policy 5.1817, severe incident assignment, previously named student expulsion.
Motion by Dr. Robinson, seconded by Ms. McQuinn. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? I'm sorry, Dr. Robinson, you have something you want to say?
I'm sorry, I think I'm confused. So severe incident assignment is under consent, right? Are we going through the consent one by one?
No, ma'am. We approved the consent agenda, so we're just looking at POLA1. Was there something you wanted to pull up consent?
Okay. No. So POLA1 is zero tolerance policy, right? Did I mishear? Maybe I misheard. Are we on POLA1?
Yeah, yes, we are on POLA1, but it talks about the zero tolerance policy, but it also says in parentheses previously named most severe consequences. So maybe that's what you heard, thought we were on the wrong policy.
Okay, that's possible. I do have comments on this policy when the appropriate time.
This is it. We have a motion.
Okay.
You know what, Mr. Barbieri, now that I look at it, I may have read the wrong one. This would be on the new business POLA1.
Right.
Okay, I read POLA2. I apologize. So let me read that into the record if you don't mind. POLA1, new business. I recommend the board adoption of proposed revised policy 5.18140, tolerance policy, previously named most severe consequences.
Okay, we got that straight now. So we need a motion to Dr. Robinson made a motion, seconded by Mrs. Whitfield. Any discussion on this now? Dr. Robinson.
Yes. Thank you. So again, I am really glad that we are finally here with these changes. I'm almost anxious that we might mess up, so I just need to go through just a couple of little details. So I just want to double check line 26. So the statute says that expulsions can be with or without continuing educational services. That's correct? With or without?
Mr. Oswald or or Dr. Sheffield, could you please respond for Dr. Robinson, please?
It's with services, yes.
Okay, but I think this might be for legal. The statute says with or without. I thought we got past that as a state. So it said the statute still says with or without. Is that correct?
Ms. Carmona? Mr. Carmona is available to respond. Thank you.
Yes, the statute still says with or without continuing services as a policy. The district always offers services.
Okay, and then moving on to the paragraph that starts with line 46, the definition of weapons. So all these things, whatever the dirk, the slung shot, like whatever that is, all these things that are named as weapons, those are specifically outlined in statute. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and then moving on to line 54. So it says, so this is the felony suspension piece. It says the school board has the right to expel any student who has committed these offenses, right? So that's not automatic then. I want to be clear. That's not like, it's not an automatic, correct?
Yes. Yes, you're right. It's not an automatic.
Okay, so just to be like triple clear. So if I'm a student, I commit a felony offense off campus, I am not automatically going to be expelled as if I brought a gun on campus.
Actually, as you will have noted on the agenda, there is a separate policy now for felony suspensions. What this specifically refers to is if a student commits a felony on campus, one that is not specifically enumerated in the policy, that's what that would refer to.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Okay. All right, so, but a felony on campus is still not automatic expulsion?
No.
Okay, so a felony on campus would go through the discipline review committee?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And then to go to line 60 and 61. So there's no early reinstatement. The board cannot determine that a student who is expelled can return early under these circumstances, the narrowly defined expulsion criteria now. That's correct?
Yes, because the zero tolerance statute requires a 1-year expulsion.
Okay.
Minimum of 1 year.
Okay. And then line 71, when applicable, these incidents will be reported to the assessor. Why don't we just automatically collect that data in the school environmental safety incident reporting system? Why is it when applicable?
The assessor has specific reporting requirements. You're correct in that the incidents that are outlined in the zero tolerance policy would be mandated, would be required to be reported in assessor. So perhaps the when applicable maybe was a little extra language that could have been removed.
Okay, well, I'll wait to see if anybody else has comments before I come back to that.
Yes, Dr. Robinson, June is also going to come in and weigh on in regards to the reporting of our assessor requirements. June.
Yeah, our assessor requirements are set by the state and they're tagged in our system, so they're automatically captured. So you are correct. So when applicable, meaning if they are defined by the state as assessor incident, they will automatically be put into the assessor system.
Okay, so just so that I'm clear, so Ms. Issa, are you saying anything different than what Ms. Carmona said?
No, no, they are correct. They're the same. The language, when applicable, really means to the application of assessor definitions and how it's defined within our system.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, then, since nobody else seems to be talking, I would just move to strike the words when applicable from line 71.
And if I may jump in again, I apologize. Now that I'm rereading this, the reason why those words would be there is because the assessor, the state often changes the definitions in the reporting system. And so this way we would not be stuck with specific parameters as they are right now. We wouldn't have to revise the policy if they change their definitions.
Okay. All right, I understand that. So we can just have a conversation at a later time on how we look at our own data in this regard. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments? I have a question for, I guess, Lisa or Mrs. Isa. Is there going to be consistency on that DRC so that we don't get differing results for similar incidents because there's different people? What kind of consistency will we have so that we don't treat children differently because there's different people involved each time the DRC meets?
We will be having trainings for all of the members. It'll be a consistent group that cycles through. So we will have meetings, and the individuals from the Department of Safe Schools and Support Services will be consistent on each of those meetings. So we'll be able to monitor that. But we will be having trainings that go over what is in our student code of conduct, how it's defined, and then we'll go forward from there.
Okay, so somebody from Safe Schools will be, the same person will be at each one of them so that you can say, well, that's not the way we handled this the last time it came before us with the identical circumstances. So
we will guide those conversations. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. That takes us to board discussion items, and the one that I wanted to discuss was discussing the possibility of reopening some of our schools for organizations to use them for summer camp. And I realized that yesterday evening that the county health department came out with she was quoted in the newspaper indicating that there are now children as young as 4 years of age, I guess, that have been infected with the virus. Up until now, I wasn't aware that any children that young children have been infected. But we're getting, I'm sure the other board members are getting the same kind of calls from the community. People want to go back to work, and they can't because they have nobody to watch their children. And my thought is there's got to be some way for these organizations that want to use their schools. I had a conversation with the director of the YMCA who called me and said typically they have 300 children at their YMCA in Boca Raton. During the summer, they've been told to cut it back to 100. That same organization leases Sandpiper Shores Elementary School and has 80 children there. So that's 80 more parents that go to work. And we're not allowing the YMCA to use Sandpiper this year. I just think we need to have a discussion because, the way I look at this is the community has always supported us. Every time we've asked for them to increase their taxes to help our schools, they said yes. At this point, they're asking, please help us go back to work. You need to open up your facilities so that the summer camps can operate so that the kids have somewhere to go. So I realize that we have, the issues with social distancing and everything else, but we really need to seriously consider helping the community because they're stuck. I mean, I hear it every single day. I'm sure you're all getting calls too. The other way I look at this is it gives us an opportunity to actually start the reopening of our schools during the summer to see how it works, because instead of bringing 200,000 kids or how many ever decide to come back in the fall all at one time, we have the opportunity to possibly bring 100 or 200 kids to different schools to see how it works, how we can keep them, if it's possible, to social distance kids, and what we do to keep everybody safe, and how we keep the schools clean. It gives us an opportunity to see how it works, actually like a laboratory, to see if we can actually do it before we're faced with bringing all the children back at one time. So I'd like to hear from any of my colleagues about how you feel. I saw Mrs. Brill, Mrs. Whitfield. So Mrs. Brill, go first. Dr. Robinson, I'm sorry, Dr. Fenoy, if you would, I saw your hand, so certainly you can preempt.
Well, I think, so I have a presentation about this, but I would definitely want the board members to discuss it before I ask Dr. Sheffield and Ms. Kawana Howe to present our initial thinkings, but I think the board should go first.
Okay, so I saw Ms. Brill, Ms. Whitfield, Ms. McQuinn. So let's go in that order.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Barbieri. And when we first announced that we were closing the summer camps and having our ESY as virtual, I did express some concerns to Dr. Fenoy. I completely agree. If we allow some of these, and I want to see Dr. Fenoy's presentation, but some of the programs to open up, parents have a choice as to whether they want to send them there. And what I'm hearing from people, and I'm sure you're hearing the same, are the emotional, the mental health issues that are coming out from this isolation. I am so concerned between the isolation, the fears that these students have had, now with the layer also of them facing the racism and violence. I am so fearful for their mental health that I really want us to find a way to, as you said, maybe use this as a test also for when we open up. But I really feel we have to start opening up, letting parents get back to work. I was a single mother. I could not have handled what these families are going through right now. There is no way I could have handled having a child with autism and then having another child and trying to put this all together. So I completely agree, and I look forward to Dr. Fenoy's presentation. Thank you.
Mrs. Whitfield?
Thank you so much. Yeah, I agree with you, Mr. Barbieri and Ms. Brill. I feel like we have got to do a little bit to help these families out. The stress that these communities are under right now, I think, is just too much. And we are the extended family for a lot of families who don't have people around here to help them to watch children while they go back to work. It is very difficult. One thing that I really want our staff to be thinking about that has been brought to my attention, really after this terribly sad story out of Miami where the autistic boy was killed by his mother, I think we have to prioritize our severely disabled children. The respite that these families need that we give to them has got to be number one. I mean, I know this is a silly comparison, but I know what it's like for the last month to, not get much sleep in full-time care for someone. It is exhausting. So what they go through for years and years, they need us so desperately right now. So I would love us to prioritize opening up, even in the upcoming year, our Royal Palm School, Indian Ridge, and cluster sites. I think they need to be, we need to figure out how to take care of these children. Also, they are the most difficult to teach virtually. So if we can only open a few, I wanted to put my voice in there for summer school, for regular school. How can we make sure these parents can send their children and so we don't lose all the efforts we've made over the years with these children? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Whitfield. Ms. Quinn?
Yes, concurring with you, I've had many, and these are not from staff members, these are from parents who very much want to continue. I don't know, it's been decades of summer camp at Independence Middle School. So I'm concurring with all of that, knowing there are many problems to be worked out.
Thank you. Any other board members want to comment at this point? Dr. Fenoy, you want to go ahead?
I'm sorry.
Dr. Martin, Mrs. Andrews.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm still having trouble with my computer after we had people to come out. But yes, I want to say that I've been working with Keith Oswald, and the conversation I had with you just the other day, I was happy to hear that you're coming up with something. I was so happy to get those Glade schools added to the list for the online summer camps. But the Boys and Girls Club has really, truly been very much asking for help. They're working with Alana Alonso from our health department with a structure on how they're actually going to do it. I'm sure that's been presented to you, Dr. Fenoy, as well as others, Keith Oswald, as to how they're going to follow those guidelines. But we're looking at some of our more at-risk children in the Glades region, where the Boys and Girls Club does a fabulous job with the summer camps, and they've been just in depression because they have not been able to get their lease. And many of those programs are out in the portables. They're not even sitting on our campus. So I'm just happy to hear that something's going to be done. I just shouted and said, hooray, that we're going to try to do something. And that's just the Boys and Girls Club. There's so many children that need some help this summer. And I'm happy that, that we've made some movement and making sure that these children can get the camp services and support they need.
Okay, so Mr. Superintendent?
Yes, sir. So as Ms. Howell and Dr. Sheffield prepare, I'm on calls constantly every day with different superintendents, and Superintendent Carvalho made a comment in a conversation around how school districts across the state are caught between state regulations and CDC regulations. And so I think I need to put that contextually, because I think all of the board member comments are accurate. I too feel like we need to do our part to help people get back to normal. However, I think publicly, I want to say before Ms. Howell presents, we're going to do this deliberately. We're going to take our time. We're going to make sure that we follow as close as we can to these rules. And so for those vendors who will be reaching out to secure leases, please understand and be patient that we will be just as particular about how you do this as the CDC guidelines. So I'll turn it over to the team right now, but I just want the community to understand we're going to start small, but we have a team that can build rapidly, but we're going to start small in a very strategic way. Ms. Howell?
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Fenoy.
Dr. Sheffield.
No, that's okay. Thank you, Dr. Fenoy, and good afternoon, board members. As Dr. Fenoy indicated, that I did spend the past few days collaborating along with Dr. Fenoy, Ms. Howell, myself, with our community partners regarding the opportunity for us to provide some summer camps utilizing district-operated facilities. And what we found during this discussion is that we really needed to take a deeper look at this in opening in phases of providing the services. So phase one, in regards to having this conversation around opening up for summer camps, is going to include our community-based providers. Our community-based providers, these are our providers that currently have an MOU, if I may say, with the district. And then phase two of the reopening for some additional summer camp opportunities would be, again, for community-based agencies without a MOU, and that particular organizations would be requiring a lease. So again, today we're going to talk about phase one, which will be the agencies that currently have an MOU with the district. And so I'm going to ask Mrs. Howell if she will go ahead and share her screens. And as she shares her screen and just take us through a little bit of where we are with the collaboration and what it will look like in some of our recommendations, you will be able to also see the agencies, where they're located in regards to phase one. And then we will continue talking about what phase two will look like through the collaboration with our community partners. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Mrs. Howell.
Good afternoon, board members and superintendent. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share with you what we've developed. I am currently working in collaboration with the legal department and risk management to develop safety and best practices recommendations for our CBOs, which are community-based organizations to use the district buildings for summer camp. Once legal and risk management have reviewed and developed those safety and best practices recommendations, the new agreements will be brought to the board's attention. Dr. Sheffield mentioned that the summer camps will open up in phases, and the first phase will be our community-based organization sites. We have a total of 17 schools, and you also see the name of the providers who have signed MOUs with the school district of Palm Beach County. As it relates to our lease facilities in that second phase of openings, they are not listed here, but there are 33 sites that currently have leases that principals entered into agreements for summer camps. And this concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Howell.
So, board, we wanted to keep it brief because, I mean, we definitely have a lot of details, but we are definitely moving in that direction. As the PowerPoint presentations show that, June 15th, we're looking to open in our first phase, and we'll entertain any questions that you may have at this time.
Dr. Fenoy, I have a quick question. I've got calls from city council people at the city of Boca Raton, and I saw the city of Delray Beach has an MOU. So is my understanding, since Boca Raton wasn't on the list, that there is no MOU with the city of Boca Raton?
No, currently, Mr. Barbieri, the city of Boca Raton does not have an MOU.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And Mr. Barbieri, as we indicated in phase two is where those community-based agencies that may not have an MOU will probably then be contacting us wanting to then, in regards to offering their camps, but going into a lease.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Whitfield?
I was just curious, if you are an organization that already has an MOU, but because of social distancing, you need more space than is at the first location, are they able to go to another location as well? Or do they have to wait till phase 2 opens up to go to a new location?
Ms. Whitfield, that is something that we would have to work out. We'll of course, have to work very closely with Wanda Paul and her team as it pertains to, the facilities. And, we, of course, want to make certain that we maintain the social distancing and provide those safety aspects as possible. So we are also including Wanda and her team and making certain that whatever protocol that we're coming up with and working with the agencies, that we're able to accommodate.
And is there going to be an increased expense if there is an incidence of COVID that comes into one of these schools?
Well, let me answer that. So we debated that as a team. As of right now, we are not including additional costs in the lease so that we don't deter organizations from using our facilities. So I'm working with some external partners through the Economic Council and others to help us cover any additional cleaning costs that the district may incur. So that, because what we were afraid of, initially we were going in that direction, but what we were afraid of, because they're going to have limited numbers, that having increased costs and limited numbers could be a problem. And some people may say, well, we can't afford to do it. So we wanted to try to remove whatever barriers we could. We contacted the head of the Economic Council, the head of the BDB, and we have friends out there who are working to help cover those costs for us.
Thank you, Ms. Brill, and then Mr. Shaw.
Thank you. And so I'm sort of in a funny situation because I'm the one board member that doesn't have municipalities. And so it also impacts when it comes to summer camp. I know my children went to Hagen Road Elementary for summer camp. So I'm guessing, or Dr. Fenoy, that we are not going to open up our traditional summer camp program. So that's the first question I have. And then the second question was, I already received a question from a constituent about whether we're going to require masks, or is that something that each organization will determine?
So the first question, the first answer is, we're starting with this, and we're going to work towards opening up as many as we can. We also are conflicted by just all the work going in our schools, construction, et cetera, and then, all of our planning. I think to your second question, what was this question? I'm so sorry. I lost it.
It was about whether we're going to require masks, or is it up to the individual organizations who run those camps?
So we will be working, and we probably will be talking to the board about this, but we are drafting a set of guidelines now, and because they're leasing, we'll put our guidelines in, and then we're not policing that. So we're going to put our recommendations, and then I'm sure I've talked to folks at the Boys and Girls Club. They have their guidelines. Dr. Alonso is working with these organizations. And so we will, so the answer is we're not sure yet. It's still out yet to be determined. I know there are some board members that are adamant that kids should wear their masks all times. You're hearing all different types of things. So for right now, we're going to put it in as a recommendation. And if that organization, they'll have to work with those pieces. And Glenda, am I saying that incorrectly?
You're absolutely correct, Dr. Fenoy, and we're looking at the CDC guidelines and what they're recommending for summer camps. And we're also working very closely with legal. Thank you, Julianne and her team. And everything that we're putting together and providing will be recommendation, as you said, to where we're not necessarily policing the providers, but we are providing them some recommendations as it pertains to maintaining the safety net as possible, as close as possible.
Mr. Shaw.
Thank you. This is for the superintendent, Dr. Fenoy, and Mrs. Sheffield. What is the process if there becomes some issues of just for a lack of a better description, compliance with outside agencies using the school? How do we have assurance that the district can monitor and enforce any compliance tight issues that might possibly arise?
I'll turn that over to Mr. Howell and Dr. Sheffield.
That is, Mr. Shaw, that is one of the aspects in regards to what we're working with legal. And that's why we're working very closely with the legal and making certain that whatever recommendations of what we're putting forward, that we as a district, it's exactly what it is a recommendation. Julianne, I don't know if you want to weigh in as has been working very closely with us.
Sure. Thank you so much for the question. And Mr. Shaw, thanks for the question as well. As Dr. Sheffield indicated, yes, we are working on a series of recommendations that are best practices. And we are currently reviewing these both with my team as well as the district's risk management department to determine how best to incorporate those in the lease, and whether or not they will remain as recommendations that are provided to them, so as to not burden the district with monitoring and really getting into the operations of a third party's operation. And that's really the balance that we're looking for in terms of how we configure these MOUs and any changes to them. If that answers your question, I hope it does.
Okay. Are there any other questions from board members? Dr. Robinson?
Okay, thank you. So obviously this is something I'm very much interested in. So let me be very clear. I get that we have competing interests, because if we were only looking at the public health issues, we would just say no, right? We would not risk anybody being exposed, right? So, but on the other hand, as has been mentioned, we have people, especially, I'm really concerned about people who are on the lower end of the pay spectrum throughout the community, and making sure that they have opportunities for their children to be in supervised settings over the summer. Now, as I understand, I want to clarify something. The phase one, those are sites that are community-based organizations that have agreements with the county's youth services department, and the children will receive scholarships through youth services. Is that correct?
Dr. Robinson, this is Kiwana Howe. The community-based organizations, they all have MOUs with the school district, and most of those agreements, they do accept scholarships.
Okay, so do you know if there are any camps that were approved by Palm Beach County Youth Services to receive their scholarships that were going to be housed in school sites before the pandemic hit, that are not on that list?
I'm not aware of those. I'm not aware of their finances and what scholarships they receive. No, I'm not. I don't have that information.
Okay, so if you don't mind, I'm going to circle back with whoever I should circle back with to make sure that we don't miss any of those camps, because Youth Services Department and CSC is putting a lot of money into making sure that children have safe, fun, but also some educational opportunities over the summer. And some of those, but not all those camps, were going to be housed in our facility. So I just want to make sure that as we go into phase one, that unless there's some reason not to, that each and every one of those youth services associated camps would be able to operate. So maybe I'll get the list, or you know the youth services people, can you just reach out to them and cross-reference with them to make sure we're not missing anybody?
Yes, Dr. Robinson. We will reach out to youth services with Tammy and Lisa and all of them to make certain that we try to be as inclusive as we possibly could without missing anyone.
Okay, so then, and the other reason that is very important is because if you look at that list, as I recall it being shared, there are not many camps there in what I'm gonna call the urban corridor that serve elementary school students. So I guess in phase two, we had 60-something elementary schools last summer that had fee-for-service camps. I just want to make sure we're not setting up a system where we have a few camps for children who would qualify for funding through youth services, but we have a plethora of camps for children whose parents can pay. Okay? You understand what I'm saying? Like, as we move forward with this, we need to make sure that we are focused on making sure we're meeting the needs of children who might otherwise be unsupervised. Because that's the competing interest that brings me to wanting these camps to open. Go ahead, Dr. Sheffield, I see you.
Yes, Dr. Robinson. No, I concur. And I've already sending an email now to Tammy to where we can get together, and I'll include Kawana to just make certain that, of course, again, that we are inclusive with all of those agencies. But
okay, thank you.
The part for us was that because initially we said that we were not opening up any of the buildings and not entertaining the camps. And it became very evident through the conversation with Dr. Fenoy and the community agencies that we needed to do something for our students, and they need it. And so today, this week, we just said we have to do it in phases to try to get phase 1, then we'll move into phase 2. Because we still have great concerns in regarding to this whole COVID-19 and the social distancing, and how do we just keep everyone healthy and safe in trying to create the opportunity. Now,
I appreciate that.
We'll reach out to you as you do know some of those individuals and have that contact right at hand.
So, and I appreciate that, and I think the phasing is wise. But now let me go to what for me is a showstopper, okay? It is a showstopper for me to not expect that everyone in the camp make every attempt possible to keep their face covered. That's a showstopper for me. I don't care what the CDC says, okay? I don't care what Dr. Alina Alonso says. Because I understand the hierarchy in the politics of medicine here. So there's one thing over here, then let's have some real conversation. That's why I'm really, really thrilled that Dr. Jean Malecki, who's the former head of our health department, who in fact trained Dr. Alonso as well as my husband, has agreed to weigh in on these things, because she's not tied to the politics. She could bring the pure public health viewpoint. And then when we had that pure public health viewpoint, then we have to weigh that against all of our competing interests, right? But at least we'll have that pure input from a very knowledgeable source. But let me just say, I'm not going to support it. I am not going to support it if we soft pedal the face coverings, right? I don't think we have to police it. Right? There's a whole lot of things that we put in agreements with agencies that we expect that we don't go turn around and police. Okay? And so for me, the word recommend is not strong enough. To me, we need to expect. I would say mandate, but mandate starts looking like we're going to double check it, right? But at least we expect. And I would expect that when these camps are open, that the school-based administrators that are on campus during the summer would walk by and they would eyeball to see if that's happening. But I'm not trying to do the gotcha. These are responsible adults who are running these camps. But we need to share the expectation that young and old alike will have facial covering on, especially while indoors. Now, I think I can live, unless Dr. Malecki told me I'm wrong, I could live with if they're going outside for recreation, that they might not have the facial covering on then. But to me, it's very clear that in addition to the limited number of children in the room, which I think is 9 children per 1 adult, and that they need to have the facial coverings. And I know that there's some other measures in place to keep the children safe in terms of those recommendations, but it troubles me that the CDC and the recommendations that I saw from elsewhere did not include that facial covering for young people. And so I just need to make that clear. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson. Mrs. Whitfield.
Thank you. I have a question for Dr. Robinson about her comments. So in the comments you were mentioning, face coverings were attempted for everyone. Did you idealize that for, I hear you say children, to what age would you like them? I'm just curious, because I'm imagining very children wouldn't be able to, very little ones. So,
well, okay, so these camps are start with kindergarten age students, right? And so, I've had some people who would say to me, you can't expect, children that young to keep their facial coverings on. Okay, so That's why it's not a mandate, but it is an expectation, right? So just like I don't expect my grandson to pick his nose, when I see him do it, I say, stop picking your nose. So if I see you take your facial covering off, I tell you to put it back on, right? But it's not like a policing thing. And I tell my grandchildren, you know, I don't want to get you sick. That's why I need you to cover your face, right? So I don't need to make you the the vector of disease, right? But yeah.
The other thing somebody had mentioned to me was about children with sensory issues. They might not be able to have things on their face. So I think if we write this into at least we should, you know, put in there that, you know, those children obviously just need additional spacing.
And I think then we start talking legal stuff in my head, because then that means the parents signing off something saying that they know that their child might not be as highly encouraged to keep their facial covering on. I mean, so yeah. I mean, I think we have to be sensitive to those needs, but I think the expectation is every, you know, breathing person on the campus has their face covered. So.
Well, let me finish by just saying I agree with you. I think that it's about setting expectations. When I walk into a place, I went to Lake Worth Beach a couple of weeks ago, which I highly regretted, because not one person there had a face covering, and I was just trying to get a takeout. And I thought, okay, can't be here because there's just no one with it covered. So I thought at the time, if everyone was, then it would feel normal. So I think it's about setting those expectations. So I agree with you.
Mrs. Whitfield, let us see Nora. Hold her up.
She's hungry, just so you know. This is not the normal baby. She's usually doing so good. I'll feed her in a second. You'll see she's much happier.
Mom, you gotta get busy.
Yeah, she just woke up from a very, very long nap, so I'm grateful for that.
Hey, I would like to take an opportunity to address something Ms. Brill asked. So we're not ready to share right now, but Dr. Sheffield is also working with her team about what we do for our special needs students. We're really considering, and again, these are all options, so we don't have any finalized plan, but I want you to know we're working on it. We're thinking about abbreviated summer schedule, but we have to talk to staff. I mean, as you all know, there's a lot of complicated pieces to this. So just know that it's on our radar, Ms. Brill. Please let your constituents know. And we're going to do everything in our power to see what's reasonable to get those kids back as soon as possible.
Thank you. I have a question, Dr. Sheffield. Yeah, I see you over there.
Yes.
There's a camp you may not be familiar with. For the last 5 years, I believe it's been 5 years, it's been held at Sunrise Park Elementary School in western Boca Raton. The camp takes in migrant children that are not English-speaking children. The difference in those kids over the summer every year has been phenomenal. Is there any chance that you could talk to Mrs. Steiger, the principal at that school, and see if you can fit that one in?
If it's for our migrant, you said it's for our migrant student population?
Yes.
Okay, what I need to do, because we do have a summer program for our migrant students. So I'm going to follow up with Mr. Oaka, Harvey, in regards to with our ELO students. I'm going to follow up with him and see what kind of services and support that we can provide for those students that typically participate if they're migrant students.
Okay, that'd be great. Mrs. Steiger's the one that's been running that. She's the principal there, so they've done a great job over the years at that school with those children. So you can get in touch.
Yeah, I will, because we have a program that will be starting up, district operated program virtually, that's starting up actually for our migrant students. So I'll reach out to Harvey.
Okay, thank you. Any other board members want to discuss this item? Okay, the next item that we have a board discussion is Mrs. Brill, you want to discuss board meetings?
Yes, thank you. And I spoke to Dr. Fenoy earlier this week about, it's wonderful to see all of you on Google Meet, but I do feel that we do lack the public participation, in our meetings when we're like this. And I know that it's premature right now because we don't know how to handle the public coming into the Fulton Holland building and our boardroom. But I did the superintendent suggested that we have a conversation about starting our meetings looking at July to give them enough time to be able to get things in place, including Dr. Robinson, the public wearing masks, to come in and start our meetings face to face. I was thinking more like, June 17th, but I understand that's probably too soon. So I just wanted to open up that conversation with all of you.
Mrs. McQuinn?
Do we have information from how the county commission is having their meetings face-to-face now?
Does anybody know the answer to that? Anybody on staff?
Well, I think that we might want to find out. Apparently there have not been issues.
Right. And I was going to say, I've watched their meetings and they did have distancing between the people that attended. I have seen that some people don't wear masks while others do. But I think that we need to move in that direction, especially if we're talking about opening up the schools. I don't want to impose on the superintendent and staff as we move into the phase of opening up the camps and other programs, putting a burden on them, but I certainly would like to set a date of the beginning of July since we are going to meet through July. This will get us a chance also to start socializing that with the public. So that's why I'm bringing this up.
Mrs. Andrews?
Thank you. And one of the things I brought up a few weeks ago was about the public comment. Now, we have them just do a recording and send it in to us. But Boynton Beach, I spoke with Mr. Katz. He says you have no further than look to Boynton Beach, and they have a system set up where the public comments are done through VI, Google, or whatever. So we need to kind of reach around within our neighborhood to find out who has actually taken the next step up so that we can make sure that we get the voices of the public and they get a chance to be able to fully, as much as possible, participate, as well as all of us. Thank you.
Anybody else? I can tell you all one thing. I came up here today because we have spotty internet connection down when it's storming in South County. And it's pretty lonely in here. I'm the only one in this great big huge boardroom, and I wish you all were here too. Mr. Shaw?
Yes, I agree with Mrs. Bell. I'd like to see us do it, but the question for Dr. Fenoy may know this. I thought that some of this was dependent on what authorization the governor has given. How much impact, or Ms. Rico, I see your hand go up, but what is the status of the legal authority we have to do it? Because I'd like to see us meet again.
And then I'm gonna defer to Julianne real quick, but I think the truth is, I think at this point, once the emergency orders are lifted, we can do whatever we want. And so from my perspective, we can move as fast as the board wants to move. The question becomes, how many of you want to be in that space? But Julianne's going to talk more about it's the public part that's actually more important. And I'll turn it over to Julianne.
Thank you. And let me just clarify on the executive orders. I think there a little bit of clarification necessary. So as you all may recall, initially the Department of Education issued an emergency order or an executive order that indicated that meetings could only be done virtually and only for emergencies. Soon thereafter, the governor issued an executive order about virtual meetings, which essentially permitted an legal override to the otherwise rule that we can't have virtual meetings. So that's the position we're in now. So we're having these virtual meetings pursuant to permissible executive order, but we certainly may, from a legal standpoint, have in-person meetings. The caveat to all of that is that one, of course, we have to adhere to all of the usual sunshine law requirements, including the public access. And then secondly, the other caveat that I shared with Dr. Fenoy and others during our conversations about this, and I think that's what he was alluding to, is that we've got to have adequate and valid provisions for public access in terms of the people that will be coming in who are not employees, who are not subject to our policies otherwise in terms of protocols for health and safety. So that's the piece that I think needs to be worked on before we reconvene in the live public setting, if you will. So thank you for allowing. And I also will say, third caveat, I just got a text from my staff that a new executive order was just issued, and we're currently reviewing that to see how it affects some of these issues, and we'll certainly keep you timely advised as soon as we decipher that. Thank you.
Yeah, just preliminarily, what it said is that the governor announced that they're moving to phase 2 reopening, but we're not included in that. So we are still in phase 1. And so I think the other piece for discussion is we had a hybrid meeting in March where 4 of you were present and 3 of you are not. Right now, our technological challenge we found out is that we can't have you all on Google Hangouts that way. So those who were still not yet comfortable coming in, as of right now, would have to be on the phone bridge, and we wouldn't be able to see you. So the team is still trying to figure that piece out. It's the feedback loops and the sound. There's something about that. But right, if we wanted to go back to our very last in-person meeting, we could do that because we have a process for the community. We put them in one room. We figured that out rather quickly, and Chief Kitzrow has all of that prepared. So it's just a matter of discussion for the board, and we can work through that.
Mr. Shaw.
Yes, I recently went to a city commission meeting that they were able to do live, and the commission, instead of sitting at the dais, they were at tables in their room, all separated, with staff being up at the dais, and in the audience, everybody had masks on, and they had chairs that were marked off for social distancing. So I think there are some options, but I agree with Mrs. Brill. I'd like to see us at least start looking at how we can do this if possible.
Great. Are there any other comments? All right, we need a motion to adjourn this meeting so we can move to the next. Motion by Ms. Brill, seconded by Mrs. Woodfield. Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Meeting adjourned. The next meeting is the meeting for the IG search. The first item we have on that agenda is a report by Chairman Talley of the Audit Committee. I understand there was some difficulty getting him on. Mrs. Bass, is he there now?
I believe he is on the phone. Mr. Talley, are you there? I can see his phone connected, but I'm not hearing him.
Okay, I understand IT is working with him to try and connect him. So at some point, when he's available, we'll certainly give him the opportunity.
Okay.
Superintendent, with your authority, we'll have Dr. LaCava start off this portion of the meeting.
Yes, sir. That's fine. Dr. LaCava, your team can go forward.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Mr. Barbieri and School Board. We are excited that we are halfway through the Inspector General search. We'll work through with that, but now we are heading into the shortlisting piece of this process. And with me today, I have Mark Mitchell, Gail Williams, and Edwin. We're all practicing social distancing with our masks. Since we're in the same room, we did not want to take the chance of spotty Wi-Fi like the last time we met. So just wanted to kind of reiterate a couple of pieces. We started this process a couple of weeks ago. 24 candidates have applied, 10 were screened in, and we just finished having the audit committee last week, and we believe that they provided some great feedback. I know Mr. Talley will share some of that feedback with this group this afternoon as well. Now we are getting ready to do the shortlisting phase, and we're going to share with you a couple of directions on how to accomplish this very efficiently and hopefully very easy. And just remember that we shared some of the instructions on the shortlisting process guidelines on June 20th, 2020. It was on the agenda for that school board meeting, and throughout the last several weeks, we've been working with legal to make sure that this process is tight and it meets every possible policy and Sunshine State policy possible. So with that in mind, I want to take you through the shortlisting process. And let me ask you, number one, the first thing that I would like you to do is on the top right-hand corner, there's a chat box for every board member. If you don't mind clicking on that.
Dr. LaCava, 1 second. Ms. Sproul's had her hand up. I think she wants to say something. Ms. Sproul.
Hands up, so my apologies.
Thank you. And I don't want to interrupt everybody, but I just have to express a little bit of frustration, and because I know that we've been talking about this process for a while, and I guess until you're in the process, sometimes you don't realize how the process is going to work. And so part of my frustration, and I thank the audit committee, I watched the meeting and rewatched the meeting, but I would have loved to have had the opportunity for us to talk about the candidates that weren't shortlisted. None of them were reviewed by the audit committee. I also, and I may make a motion after Dr. LaCava goes through the process, but as I looked at the resumes, I was thinking, gee, I don't know if I really want to be boxed into 3 choices. Maybe we should have the ability to shortlist more, but because of Sunshine, I couldn't share that with all of you. So you wouldn't have had the opportunity to see if there were others that you wanted to shortlist. So I'm just feeling very frustrated. I know all of you know I've asked over a year ago for us to start this process, but now I feel like we are going very quickly, and it's such an important position that I would have loved to have had an extra week to talk to you first and then come back and do the shortlisting. So I just needed to put that out there.
Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Chairman Talley, go ahead. I'm glad you were able to join us. Go ahead.
You can hear me, right?
Yes, sir.
Good. Well, I'll just be real brief, Mr. Chairman and school board members. As you all know, the audit committee met virtually last Friday, the 29th, to review 10 IG candidates and provide input to you all. All 7 of our board members were present. Let me first congratulate HR and Dr. LaCava for providing us with such a concise notebook, not at all like it was previously. And it provided us the 10 applicants who complied with the job description of Inspector General. This complete package made it easy to review. We discussed each of the 10 candidates for 5 minutes each, pointing out the strong points and weaknesses. I want you to emphasize that our goal was not to prioritize, but only provide our input to you all on the school board. Several items that we recommend be focused on are experience with governing boards, number of staff supervised, are they responsible for investigations, and how many audit reports were conducted annually. My committee took this job seriously and hope our input will assist you in making the selection of the district's new Inspector General. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Talley. And as I told you at the audit committee, there was 5 of our board members were actually watching that meeting live with you. And I'm sure all of us have had the opportunity to review it because the link went out to all of us. But you all did a great job for us, and we appreciate it. In fact, I've watched your video now twice to go over the candidates again to hear what you had to say. So thank you to all of you for doing all that heavy lifting for us to help us come to a decision on this.
It was our pleasure. Good luck.
Thank you. Ms. McQuinn, did you have
bye-bye.
Thank you, Mr. Talley.
So, am I on, Mr. Barbieri?
Hold on a minute. Ms. McQuinn is trying to talk, but her lips are moving, but we don't hear anything. So, Ms. McQuinn, if you get IT to come out to your house, I've got a button on my keyboard that's a slash, and I hit it, and it turns the microphone on and off, and I don't have to look for that stupid white bar and try and find it. But there's a way to fix this. So if you can't talk right now, we'll come back to you. Whenever your microphone goes on, I'll recognize you. Go ahead, Dr. LaCava, in the meantime.
So I just want to thank Mr. Talley and, of course, for all the feedback. I know my staff has been working very, very hard to make sure that we provide the board with the best information to make the best decision. And I think in regards to Mrs. Brill, I think if the board pleases to add or do something differently, I think it's it'll be completely up to the board, but we will do whatever you guys direct us to do.
Dr. LaCava, Ms. McQuinn came live, so go ahead, Ms. McQuinn.
Thank you. I wanted to thank Mr. Talley for doing an amazing job of running a tight meeting. And also, I found the input from the audit committee members very, very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Dr. LaCava.
No, that's it. I just wanted to make sure that I responded to Mrs. Brill's request, and whatever the direction is from the board, we'll be glad to do. But I just want to make sure that when we went through the screening process, we were looking specifically for the job qualifications. If a person did not have a certain criteria, we put no. If a person didn't meet a certain criteria, we also put no. We were not making assumptions. We were going strictly by the qualifications of the job description. So that's why we were able to select 10 people to be screened in, and we screened out anybody that did not have one of those qualifications. So just wanted to put that out there in regards to our thought process and our guidelines to do this.
Ms. Brill, go ahead.
Thank you. So under the people that were not screened into the process, the one person that I pulled, that I questioned, thinking that, perhaps, and, I don't write job descriptions. And so I don't even know how to put this in the right words, but David Rhodes was the person that I was looking at who had previously, he's also worked in Broward, and he was screened out apparently because of his bachelor's degree being liberal arts. But if you look at his background and experience, I think they merit consideration. So, to me, and I know in my career, my bachelor's degree didn't drive, and my associate's degree didn't drive what I did as a career. I don't know, I wouldn't put anyone on the spot with regard to what they're doing now in their roles, but whether their bachelor's degree matched what their actual job was. But I would hope that all of you would just take a look at his 19 years experience, it looks like, with audits and inspector general positions. And that was it. I didn't have any other questions about him other than the fact that, our job description says bachelor's degree, blah, 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 or related field. And I was told that a liberal arts degree is not considered a related field, but to me, a bachelor's is a bachelor's. So I put that out to you.
Mrs. Brill, I had a similar question about Mr. Rhodes, and actually I asked Dr. LaCava if he could define how they determine what a related field is. And Dr. LaCava, would you explain to the board how you went through that exercise to make sure it wasn't an arbitrary, I decide, you decide, but explain how we did that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Once we looked at Mr. Rhodes, he had a lot of the other qualifications, and we really wanted to make sure that a related field, how does his degree match up to the related field? And I believe that his degree is in sociology. And so I asked Ms. Williams, Director of Non-Instructional Recruitment, to look into that. And the first answer was no, they did not qualify because sociology is not a related field to the Inspector General. So then I asked her to again get some documentation from the Department of Education. And we received an email, I would say about 2 days ago, and the explanation was that sociology is only relatable in social sciences. Is that correct? Correct. And that was the response from the Department of Education. We did not go looking anywhere else since we guide ourselves through the guidance of the Department of Education.
So when Dr. LaCava answered that question for me, I asked Mrs. Rico if we were jeopardizing our selection process if we wavered from the remember we went through this with Ray and Associates, and they gave us a lot of people that didn't qualify because they didn't meet all of our requirements. So the concern, I guess, and Mrs. Rico, you can probably explain, but I guess the concern would be that if we make a variance here for this individual, if we know that he didn't meet all the qualifications, we may have issues with the others that we didn't give the same opportunity to Mrs. Rico.
Thank you. So yes, I would just caution the board in adhering to the four corners of your job description, which very clearly issues a shall have the requirements, the identified areas of study for the undergraduate degree were clearly articulated, or related fields was, you know, an additional qualifier. And if the board would be so inclined, I would recommend that they follow the policy, not deviate at this stage, and give deference to or consideration to HR's opinion and input on the academic qualification there.
Ms. Bro.
Thank you. So I will defer to HR and to our general counsel, and hope that in the future, when we do look at job descriptions, and hopefully we won't be doing this again anytime soon, but perhaps if a person has a higher level degree, like a master's or a doctorate, in the position, in the field that we are interviewing for. Now, I understand this particular candidate doesn't, but I don't think that a bachelor's degree is necessarily the driving force for hiring someone. I think if they have higher degrees that would supersede, that relate to their field, it would supersede that. But I will defer to their judgment on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brill. So Dr. LaCava, well, board members, I guess what we need to decide is Dr. LaCava is going to explain to us how we do the voting. But before we actually start voting, I guess the board needs to decide, do we want to discuss candidates among ourselves, or do we just want to go to a straight vote? I mean, we don't have a process that's been adopted at this point, so it's up to the board members how they would like to move forward. I see your hand, Ms. McQuinn, one more second. And the other thing that I understand is after a very lengthy discussion with a very stressed out board chairman and Mr. Well, I won't name him, but we all know and love him in the general counsel's office. When we vote today, every single time we vote, as we go through, they're going to read off the 7 board members' names and who we voted for. Then when we did the second vote, they're going to read off our names and who we vote. I really don't care. It's just a question of, couldn't we just make all that available after the meeting as a public document, because it is public. But in any event, we're going to be going through that exercise when we get to the part of the voting. So, Ms. McQuinn, go ahead and give me and then Mrs. Andrews.
It would be my preference. Obviously, I go with the group that we go ahead and submit our 3 top. And then if that requires discussion, because we vary greatly, then we have a discussion.
Okay, Mrs. Andrews.
Yes, I concur with what Mrs. McQuinn has just said, but I had another piece that we may want to discuss later. But I thank you all for getting the reference sheets from HR. And whatever we decide as far as the top 3, many of those reference sheets did not give us an opportunity to actually make a connection with their current place of employment. And we just really need to have that information before we make our final selection. So I really want to make sure that we have some discussion about that when we come up to the top 3, that we get an opportunity to find out how well they're doing, where they're situated now in their jobs.
Ms. Brill.
And I concur with both Mrs. Andrews and Mrs. McQuinn. I'd rather just go to the vote. Coming from the corporate side of the world, I've never, and when I was in HR, reached out to references before we got to hiring. I could definitely agree with having staff check references of the top 3 before we go into the interview period. But I personally was not comfortable contacting any references at this juncture. But I do agree. I'd like to just go to the vote. And yes, I can go with 3 if that's what the board wants, or I could go with 4 if that's what my colleagues want.
So with respect to that, the board members, do you have your own opinions on whether we should shortlist 3, 4, 5, what the number? Currently, the anticipation is that we would shortlist 3. Does anybody feel that they'd like to shortlist more than 3? See nobody shaking their heads yes. So Dr. LaCava, would you please explain to us how we're going to do this, since we're not all in a room where you can pick up ballots from us and count?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and due to the fact that we're in a virtual work environment, we had to kind of work around. So if everybody can go to the top right-hand corner, and there's a chat feature between the time and the number of participants. And there's three lines. If you click on that, there will be a link that comes out of there. And once you get that link, please double click on the link and you should get a Google form. So I will stop there and see if anybody's having any issues getting that Google form. And I can do that one more time. Does everybody see the where the time of the meeting's at? It should say 3 o'clock.
Up in the top right.
Up in the top right-hand corner. And if you click on that chat feature, there should be a link. And Mrs. McQuinn, we're here to help you.
You may have to present it.
Okay.
I had it once. Now I'm moving over to that big screen, which I have loved. And for some reason, I just don't see that thing now. Okay, so work with me.
Sure, no problem. That's what we're here to do. Whatever we have to do to make this process smoothly.
I got it.
Awesome. Mrs. Andrews, do you have it?
I do not.
Okay. Other than Mrs. Andrews, does everybody else have it? Thumbs up if you please. I'm gonna work you through like I do my FAU class. Okay. Mrs. Andrews, on the top right-hand corner, you see a time?
Yeah, and I'm in the chat, and I clicked on the chat twice.
And do you see a link that comes out?
Don't click the time, click the little icon.
Click the icon of the chat. The time.
It's not the time. Would everybody turn their microphones off, please? Mrs. Andrews, it's not the time. There's a little box with an arrow pointing down. That's what you need to click on. That's the chat box.
I did click on the chat box. Yep, I don't see it.
I'm going to present my screen, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Do you see this little box, Mrs. Andrews, right here between the time and the participants?
Yeah, I clicked on that. I don't get anything.
You should have a link.
No, it's not coming through.
Okay.
She may have dropped off.
Let me do it one more time. I'm going to do this for you, Mrs. Andrews. Give me 1 second. Do you see it now?
Yeah, we got it now.
Great. Thank you very much for working with me, Mrs. Andrews, and the board. So what you're going to do now is you're going to go down to the board member that says choose, and you're going to click on your name. And after you click on your name, you're going to select your top 3 candidates. You're going to scroll down and submit. And then you're going to give us about a couple minutes it's going to self-tabulate, but just give us a minute just to make sure everything is fine. So let me stop there and see if there's any questions.
We have 2 of them so far.
All right, so far we have 2. Mr. Shaw.
Yes, when I went to that, I lost my name off the screen. So what do I need to do?
Let me make sure. Let me see. Give me 1 second.
Right now, my name is in the top right corner of my screen, but it's not in the big field. And when I click over to chat, my name disappears.
Let me see if we can. Give me 1 second. I'm trying to troubleshoot this while I'm talking.
If you click the link, that should work fine.
Were you able to click on the link, Mr. Shaw?
Yes, I'm on the link.
You're on the link. So once you click on the link, do you see the form come out?
Yes.
All right. So once you go to the form, you said you don't see your name?
No.
In the drop down?
In the drop down, hit the arrow where it says choose. Right here. Am I presenting still?
I don't think so.
Let me, give me one more second, Mr. Shaw. Let me present my screen one more time. Mr. Shaw, do you see my screen?
Yes. I didn't know that. That will not come up on mine.
It won't come up?
No, I click on chat when the screen on the right, it's got your name on it and it says chat. I click and nothing's happening now at all on that.
So in this case, we are going to go to work with you, Mr. Shaw. We're just going to take your 3 votes verbally instead of working through this. Instead of that was our second our alternative plan in case some of this did not work. So
right.
He's using his Palm Beach.
And then one more question. Do you know if you're using your Palm Beach account for your Google account?
I'm not sure which one. It's whatever the link was that Carol, when she sent it to us.
No problem. Do you mind giving us the 3 names of who you're choosing?
Yes.
Wait a minute. He can't give the 3 names before all of us vote, because then we're going to see how each other's voting ahead of time. If we're going to do that, we need to do it all.
I will wait for everybody to submit their votes. Let me see how many people we're waiting on. Mr. Mitchell, how many people are we waiting on?
We have 4. We have Ms. Whitfield, Ms. Brill, Ms. Andrews, and Ms. McQuinn.
All right, so we are still waiting on, who are the people that we're waiting on?
We're waiting on Mr. Barbieri.
Mr. Barbieri, we're waiting on your votes.
Dr. Robinson.
Dr. Robinson.
And Mr. Shaw.
And Mr. Shaw. And then we'll wait, Mr. Shaw, for you to go last.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
So I have a question. Where's my question?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Well, 2 things. One, why don't you just email the form to Mr. Shaw?
It's emailed.
It's emailed, correct?
So he can check his email.
Mr. Shaw, we also sent it to you by email. Sorry, did not mention that earlier. Thank you, Dr. Robinson.
Okay, and then the second thing is, so I see on this form, we had to check 3.
Correct.
So on subsequent forms, are we going to be required to check a certain number?
Yes, depending if there are ties, we'll have to have a runoff. And yes, ma'am, that's true.
Okay, we'll see how the math goes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Shaw.
So, Dr. Robinson, we're waiting on you before I can take Mr. Shaw's verbal vote.
No,
Yeah. So, Mr. Shaw, the form should be in your email if you want to try that. If not, I will wait until Dr. Robinson's complete and I'll take your verbal vote.
You should have mine. It didn't come through.
I have it.
Yes, we just received it.
Okay.
So, Mr. Shaw, would you like to give me your 3 votes or are you working through the form? You're on mute, Mr. Shaw.
Mr. Shaw, turn on your microphone.
You checking my math? Yeah.
I haven't gone through the place on here.
Okay.
So what tab is that?
I think that's tab matrix.
Actually, I think I just sent you the first round.
Very good. Let us check.
I have it.
We just received it, Mr. Shaw. Thank you. So give us 1 minute. We're going to tabulate. Just make sure that we review the tabulation and we'll get right back to the board and start the second round. Thank you very much.
Just so you're aware, I'm using 2 different computers to do all of this now since I've got the email going, so.
Mr. Shaw, whenever you want to come work for the IT department, let us know.
No, you would never see anything work again, ever.
Dr. Robinson, while we're waiting, Somebody should send your grandson when he's 25 years old a clip of the point where he told everybody in the world that he picks his nose. So he probably get a kick out of that when he's 25. We need Jeopardy music here. Who's got the link to Jeopardy? Mrs. Whitfield, do you want to sing?
You seriously do not want me to sing at all.
All right, we are back. Mark's going to go through the results, and we are going to have a runoff. So in about 2 minutes, you're going to be receiving a link, but I'm going to let Mark go through the verbal results right now.
Thank you, Dr. LaCava. Just to read everybody, what happened when you voted is it submits to our screens. We get a timestamp to your votes, and I'll read those off in the order received. Ms. Whitfield had Harper, Michael, and Russo. Ms. Brill had Ali, Bliss, and Michael. Ms. Andrews had Hewitt, Navarezny, and Russo. Ms. McQuinn had Ali, Cashman, and Michael. Mr. Barbieri had Ali, Bliss, and Navarezny. Dr. Robinson had Ali, Holmgren, and Michael.
You're sending it to me?
Mr. Shaw had Ali, Hewitt, and Michael. So when we tabulate those, we have Ali and Michael with our top 2 vote getters, and then we'll have a runoff of 4 that will now send you another vote for. So we're going to send you a link with these 4 names for Bliss, Hewitt, Navarezny, and Russo, and you get to please vote for one of those when you receive it.
And I think Mrs. Brill has a question, Mark.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, you said it was Mr. Ali, and are you talking about Teresa Michael or?
Yes.
Okay, because you said Mr. It threw me. So okay, and then can you give me the names again of those we're voting on so that I can take a quick look?
Yes, ma'am. The runoff for 3rd place, your 3rd selected candidate for the short list. The runoff consists of 4 names: Bliss, Hewitt, Navarezny, and Russo.
So Mr. Barbieri, do you want to give the board a couple of minutes just to review their notes while I prepare the link, or would you want me just to move forward and get the link prepared?
Before I answer that question, I'm confused because first you said Ali was in it, but you just answered Ms. Brill with 4 other names and he wasn't included. So who are the 4 that we're not down to out of the 10? Are there 4 now that we're going to do a runoff on?
Yeah, the 4 for the runoff. Let me first state that Ali and Michael are in your final group of candidates. So you've already selected 2 of the 3 for your final shortlist. Now we're at the point of selecting the 3rd name. There is a tie for the 3rd place between Bliss, Hewitt, Navarezny, and Russo. And we'll send you another link to click on and submit one name out of those 4. You'll see those 4 listed.
Okay, thank you. So I guess what Dr. LaCava asked was, do we want to, at this point, discuss those 4 people before we vote, or do you just want to go through the next vote without any discussion at this point? Those people that just want to go to the next vote, just put your thumbs up.
All right.
Looks like you got a majority. Yeah.
Dr. Robinson, I didn't see your thumb. Did you want to discuss?
What I think, I don't know right now. Can we hear that tally again? I'm just, because it just didn't add up the same way in my head that you announced it. So can we do it one more time for me? I'm sorry.
Dr. LaCava? Or Mr. Mitchell?
You're on mute, gentlemen. You're on mute.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Fenoy. Go ahead, Mark.
I'm sorry, Dr. Robinson. I was just seeking to clarify your question. Would you like me to summarize the total tabulations, or would you like me to summarize?
Yeah, say what you said before when you said, like, I voted for whoever I voted for, and who, do that again when you announce the votes. That's, I think, what I'm getting my language together.
You got it.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. For Ms. Whitfield, I have Harper, Michael, and Russo. For Ms. Burrill, we have Ali, Bliss, and Michael. For Ms. Andrews, we have Hewitt, Navarezny, and Russo. Ms. McQuinn, we have Ali, Cashman, and Michael. Mr. Barbieri, Ali, Bliss, and Navarezny. Dr. Robinson, Ali, Holmgren, and Michael. Mr. Shaw, Ali, Hewitt, and Michael.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I will prepare the link. Give me 30 seconds.
That's fine. That's fine.
The link has been added to the chat feature again. If you go back to that chat feature, it will be there. Please use the last link provided, and the time for that link was sent at 3:15 p.m. You got it right?
There we go. Yeah, perfect. Oh, here we go. So,
Dr. Wakabe, you received my email back response.
You were the first one. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Give me a minute here.
I'm still in the meeting.
We so far we have 6 of 7 board members completed their vote. We will wait another couple minutes.
Dr. Robinson, you had your hand up?
Did my vote go through?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. It was delayed last time. Thanks.
All right, we have received all the votes for the board members. Give us 30 seconds. All right, the envelope is in. We're going to unseal it. Mark Mitchell, go ahead.
I feel like we're on the game show. It's Mr. Shaw, Russo, Ms. Brill, Hewitt, Ms. Whitfield, Russo, Mr. Barbieri, Bliss, Ms. Andrews, Navarezny, Dr. Robinson, Navarezny, Ms. McQuinn, Russo. So therefore, when you tabulate those votes, Russo ended up with 3. So that is our 3rd finalist. So our 3 finalists are
Ali, Michael, and Russo, right?
That's correct.
So the 3 finalists are Ali, Michael, and Russo.
Now with that, unless there's any questions, we'll talk about
Any questions on the short listing, the tabulation? If not, Mr. Mitchell is going to wrap up the IG piece with the timeline on the question creation and development. So I will wait to see if there are any questions at this time.
Board members, do you have any questions? I see none, Dr. LaCava, go ahead.
Go ahead, Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you very much. I just want to call our attention to the remaining items on the timeline, what will happen from this point forward. Obviously, the timeline called for June 3rd shortlisting, which we've successfully done. It also, just as an item, talks about development of interview questions. We've talked about the methodology here for I guess, during the process here, and we've actually used this in previous superintendent searches. So the notion is on the timeline, it says each board member brings 3 questions to the actual interview. With the thought is you ask 2. The third one is really a backup. If another board member asks one of your questions that you had as your top 2, you move to your third. So at the actual interview, each board member would ask 2 questions, right, of all candidates. To assist you in preparing your questions, Ms. Williams is going to send some what we have is a bank of questions from the district on what we do for previous interviews. So we'll send those to you just to help guide you. So that's the thought on question development. And I'll stop there before I go to the next item and see if there's any questions on that.
Board members, do you have anything? Go ahead, Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you, sir. So the next item on there is from today through the 16th, because the finalist interview will be on the 17th, the public virtual interviews. We ask, and the timeline calls for each board member to schedule no more than a 30-minute discussion, which each of our 3 finalists will send you. If you don't have it, we'll send you the contact information for these 3 finalists. We will also proceed with, according to the timeline, conducting the background searches with the external background search firm that we've contracted with. We'll probably get with them tomorrow, give them the names, and they'll begin that as well, and we'll share that with the board. So that's the process going forward. We're certainly open to taking any questions at this time.
Yeah, can I ask a question real quick before the board proceeds? On the scheduling of appointments, would it be better if we send it to the board office? Because if all 7 board members start contacting people, they won't know the schedules. So I feel like you need like a centralized scheduling of appointments with the 7 board members, so the 3 candidates, there's more consistency. I hope you understand what I'm saying. Mr. Barbieri, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was going to say the same thing. It's going to get too cumbersome with 7 board members calling 3 individuals, and they're not going to, they're going to have to keep answering phone calls. And if the board office could schedule that for us, we could all submit, to let somebody in the board office handle that for us. Ms. Brill? Ms. Brill?
Thank you. And so I also agree it would be better to have the board office schedule us. But are we doing these by phone, or are we doing them by a Google Meet, or how are we doing that?
Yeah, it will be completely your preference, whether it's by phone or by Meet.
So board members, you'll have to let the board office know if you want to do a virtual, where you can see them, or just want to talk to them on the phone. You'd each let the board office know when you contact, who we're going to use up there, Dr. Fenoy, probably Dr. Steve with board clerk.
Yeah, let's make, we'll make Carol Bass the point person. I mean, obviously she's in contact with all of the remaining assistants, and we will work on that this week and get that organized for you. Carol, is that okay?
Absolutely, we got it.
All right, Mrs. Andrews?
I just want to be clear, I have to go back and look at these 3 individuals. Some of them said they did not want their current place of employment checked. So I just want to make sure that I can have that information before I make a decision. So what was the conclusion as to how this is going to work with finding out how well they're doing in their current position? I still haven't gotten that clear as to how that's going to be crystallized for me and the rest of the board members before we make a selection.
Mr. Mitchell, instead of going through right now and taking a look, can you look quickly and tell us, of those 3 individuals, did any of them tell us that we could not contact their current employer? And I believe all of them gave us contact references, but did any of them tell us? I know somebody referenced, I don't know if it's one of the ones we selected. One of them.
I didn't get it, but I don't.
For those 3.
Yeah, we're looking for it now.
Can you give us a couple of minutes to look through our documentation?
No, of course.
Mr. Barbieri?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. May I ask a question?
Certainly.
Great. Is there a reason why we can't have them come in and meet face-to-face with social distancing, of course?
They're all over the country, so they would have to fly here. I'm not sure, some of them may want to get on an airplane at the moment, but.
Mr. Mitchell can answer that question while I'm reviewing the document.
I believe, when we posted this job, we let the candidates know it'd be a virtual interview. So at this point, that was already put out there. Not that, we couldn't change it at this point, but that was already put out there.
So, Russo, what about that one?
I don't see anything.
Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, to answer Mrs. Andrews' question, at this time, we're not finding anything from any of the 3 candidates that were selected that it states explicitly that we cannot contact their current employer.
Okay, great. So I see your hand, Ms. Brill. Hold on one second. So with respect to Mrs. McQuinn's question, I guess the best way to handle that, since we can't do face-to-face here, is to schedule the virtual meeting so that we can talk to them and see them and they can see us when we're talking to them. Ms. Brill, do you have something?
Thank you. All I was going to say is for those candidates that didn't want their employers to know, we live in the sunshine. So most likely their employers know. So, it is what it is. In Florida, once you apply, that's it. You're out there.
Yeah, and that was a discussion we had earlier today. Once they apply, there's really nothing to shield them. So thank you for that point, Mrs. Brill. Any further questions, Mr. Barbieri or school board members?
Well, I think there's still an outstanding question. Is the board's will and pleasure that we check the references before you even set up interviews and get you reference checks? Is that, I want to hear, I need to hear what you want. Mr. Barbieri, I need you to really let me know exactly what you want us to do.
So I saw 2 thumbs up. Mrs. Andrews and Dr. Robinson said, yes, I agree. We'd like to have the reference checks, the criminal background checks, all the other stuff done before we do the personal interviews, so we don't have to go through that for nothing. Can I see thumbs from the other? Mrs. Whitfield, is it okay? Would you prefer to have the background checks now or after we do the interviews? Now?
You said both.
Ms. Brill?
Thank you. You can do them now. I don't have an issue with it because now they're shortlisted.
Ms. McQuinn? Ms. McQuinn's frozen, but.
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Okay, so I believe, and Mr. Shaw?
It's 2 weeks away, so who knows they won't wait that long.
So all the board members would like to. Go ahead, Doctor.
Go ahead, Mr. Carver.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that everyone's aware that a background check using this third-party company could take up to 7 days. So I just want to make sure everybody knows that, so we don't get our expectations that it's going to come out.
Right, so let me go ahead and be clear about this. I think reference checks can be done. I think before a final offer would be given to anyone, then we can do we can get that process started. So I wouldn't want to delay getting you guys embedded in the process, waiting on the criminal background check, but we can always start that process. And before a final offer is given to anyone, we'll have that done. But we can definitely get the references done in the next day or 2. I'm sorry, not the next day or 2, next week.
I was listening to something.
I know y'all have masks on, but I got a really dirty look right then.
So board members, what the superintendent is suggesting is the deep dive background check is going to be done after we do our interviews. Is everyone okay with that? Let me hear from you, please. Thumbs up, yes, you're okay with it, or turn your microphones on. Mrs. Whitfield, you're okay. Ms. Bill, okay. Dr. Robinson's okay. Ms. McQueen is still frozen, so.
We're going to start the process of trying to get those background checks done. It's just going to take a week, and so that we'll have an opportunity to interview people before that. That's the case.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Yes, that's what we're asking. Is that okay? Some of you may start your interview, get your interview scheduled before that background check.
Absolutely. That sounds great. I just want to make sure we have that pretty soon.
Okay. Unless I hear an objection from somebody turning on their microphone, we'll assume that that's the process the HR will follow, of course.
Yes, sir.
Board Board members, do you have anything else? Dr. LaCava, do you have anything else that the board needs to advise?
No, I just want to thank the school board and the chairman and the audit committee for all their feedback. We're heading in the right direction, and anything you need, we're always here. Have a great day.
All right, thank you. Mrs. Whitfield, if anybody else has anything, otherwise we can take a motion to adjourn. Motion by Mrs. Whitfield, seconded by Ms. Brill. Assume there's no discussion. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. The meeting is adjourned. Everybody safe trip home. I understand 95 might have some issues, so if you're going to south, probably you should stay off of 95.
Yeah, I agree. I have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.